about something that makes people very uncomfortable. Is it Jesus? Is it socialism? And the question nobody wants to answer. But because if you've ever heard someone say Jesus was basically a socialist, you're about to watch that argument collapse under its own weight and hubris. First, we need to understand something called the problem of evil. And this problem has existed basically since the idea of religion came about. And this is one of the oldest debates in philosophy and theology. The basic premise is if God is all powerful and all good, then why does evil exist? Why is there suffering? Why is there pain in this world? This question shows up all over Scripture, especially in the book of Job. And this is what we're going to dive into today a little bit more. And Christians have wrestled with this for thousands of years. Well, a couple thousand years. Now, here's where things can get interesting in this, and I hope we can have an intelligent and intellectual discussion. Because modern Christian socialists, yes, that's the thing, take a very specific stance. They argue that if you have the power to reduce suffering, you have a moral obligation to do it. It sounds nice, right? Compassion, helping people, ending poverty. But as with any solution, there's always problems to it. That same logic gets very awkward when you apply it to Jesus. And you might be thinking, Jeff, how is that possible? Well, let me ask you something to start off with. Did Jesus heal people? According to the scriptures, yes, he did. And that's important, but we're going to dive into that a little bit later. Did he feed the hungry? Yes, he did. 5,000 people, in fact, according to the scriptures. But here's the kicker in all of this. Did he heal everyone? That's a resounding no. Did he eliminate all hunger? No. He didn't do it. And this is where we start to get into the problem of evil. So now that we have this tension between he didn't cure all hunger and help everyone, and he helped some, this is the tension. Because if you believe, if you have the power to eliminate suffering, you must do it, then what do you do with what Jesus did in the scriptures? Because by that standard, he either couldn't stop all suffering, which means he was not all powerful, or, and this is the other one, didn't stop all suffering, which means he chose not to. Now, we can go into certain theological things about the fountainhead and all this, and whether Jesus was God or just part of it, whatever. And that's the exact contradiction that this article points out on Mises.org. I'll include the link in the description. Now, before anyone freaks out, this is not an attack on Christianity. This is an attack on a bad political argument. Because traditional Christianity already has answered the problem of evil. Free will, moral responsibility, a fallen world, redemption through suffering. But socialism doesn't have a theology of suffering. It has a control problem. See, socialism assumes something's dangerous. That suffering exists because people aren't being controlled enough. Not enough redistribution, not enough authority, not enough centralized power in the government. So what does the solution become? They'll say, give us more power and we'll fix it. Show me a Democrat that doesn't want more power to fix problems. But here's the uncomfortable truth in that. If eliminating suffering is the goal, then why stop at healthcare? Why stop at welfare? Why not control everything in the world? Because it's impossible to control everything in the world. Control what you eat, what you earn, what you say. Because if someone suffers anywhere, you now have a moral obligation to intervene. And I'm going to give you this. Congratulations. You just built a moral justification for total control and authoritarianism. This is where libertarians step in and say, hold on a minute. Maybe suffering isn't something you can centrally plan away. Maybe human beings aren't chess pieces to be moved around the board at your whims to make you feel better. Maybe the world is more complex than your political fantasy. But now let's get back to Jesus for a minute because what did he actually do? Did he build a government program? Hell no. What else didn't he do? Did he lobby Rome for wealth redistribution? Yet again, the answer is no. And that's the bottom line. Did he seize property from the rich? Yet again, no. Instead, he did something far more radical. He changed individuals. He preached personal responsibility. He called people to give voluntarily, not through force, not through coercion, but through choice. And that matters. Because forced charity isn't charity, it's taxation. Let me say that again for the people in the back and the slow socialists. You don't get moral credit for spending someone else's money. Now, here's where the problem of evil actually helps us understand reality. Because it reminds us not all suffering is something you can eliminate. Some suffering exists because of human choice. Some exist because of nature. And some exist because the world isn't a perfectly controlled system. And now, if that's true, then trying to engineering a suffering-free society through political power is not just naive, it is also incredibly dangerous. Because humans, once we get power, we don't want to give it up. Because every time someone says, we need more control to fix suffering, what they're really saying is, and this is behind the curtain, we're willing to sacrifice freedom for an outcome that we can't guarantee. That's kind of jacked up, isn't it? And history is full of what happens next. And spoiler alert, and wait, there's more. It doesn't end in utopia. You would think it would, but it doesn't. It ends in dystopia. So here's the real question. Are you following Jesus? Or are you trying to turn him into a political mascot for your own ideology and lack of actual compassion for people? Because these are not the same thing. Jesus did not promise to eliminate all suffering on earth. He never did that. He didn't build a centralized system to manage human behavior. Why would he? And he definitely didn't advocate for coercive redistribution of wealth, which a lot of leftists seem to think. What he did say was far more uncomfortable for the leftists and people on the right. He put the responsibility on you, your choices, your actions, your morality. And that's the part people on the left and right don't like. Because it's easier to vote for change than to become it. It's easier to demand someone give you something than go out and actually get it yourself. So next time someone says, Jesus was a socialist, I want you to hit them with this. And ask them this one very simple, fundamental question. If eliminating suffering is a moral obligation, why didn't Jesus eliminate all of it? And watch how fast the conversation changes. And I'm Jeff. And as always, I say, stay free, stay informed, stay accountable. And I'll see you all next Monday on Are You Smarter Than a Libertarian? Please like, comment, subscribe, and share.